Aston Martin may have just found the one advantage that could completely rewrite its Formula One future. A new report claims Honda's latest power unit could deliver an astonishing 40 horsepower gain. If that figure is even close to accurate, this is not a minor upgrade. It could mean stronger acceleration, better overtaking power, and a machine capable of attacking the fastest teams on the grid. But there is one major problem. The headline is explosive, yet the real evidence behind that 40 horsepower claim has not been publicly detailed. And that uncertainty makes this story even more important, because the difference between genuine performance and preseason expectation could decide whether Aston Martin becomes a championship threat or faces another painful year of promises. The most revealing detail is not the number itself. It is what Honda may have changed to make that number possible, and why Aston Martin could benefit more than anyone expects. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this claim matters, you first need to understand what Aston Martin is really chasing. This is not just about finding a little more speed on a straight, it is about changing the entire ceiling of the car. In Formula One, extra power does not work in isolation. It affects how quickly the car launches out of slower corners, how strongly it accelerates toward the next braking zone, and how much pressure a driver can apply when another car is just ahead. Think of it like running uphill with a heavy backpack. If someone suddenly removes part of that weight, you do not just move faster for 1 second. Every step becomes easier, every change of direction feels less costly, and over an entire lap, that difference can begin to grow. That is why a claimed gain of 40 horsepower immediately gets attention. But here is the important distinction. The attached source presents that number in the headline, yet it does not provide the testing method, the comparison point, or the conditions behind the claim. It does not explain whether the figure refers to peak power, total usable performance, or an estimate linked to development. And that matters because a large number can sound decisive while still leaving the most important questions unanswered. 40 horsepower compared with what? An earlier design? A projected baseline? A rival estimate? Or a theoretical maximum that may not be available through an entire race? Those details are not included in the source. Still, the scale of the claim tells us why this story has become so powerful. Aston Martin's future depends on more than having a famous name attached to the project. It depends on whether every major part of the package can finally work together. The chassis must produce grip. The aerodynamics must remain stable. The tires must stay inside the correct temperature range. And the power unit must deliver energy in a way the driver can actually use. Because raw power alone does not guarantee success. Imagine owning the strongest flashlight in the world, but the battery only works for a few seconds. The headline number would be impressive. The real usefulness would be much smaller. A Formula One power unit faces a similar challenge. It must be powerful, efficient, reliable, and predictable. The driver needs confidence that the response will be there every time the accelerator is pressed. The team needs confidence that the engine can survive the demands of an entire race weekend. That is where the Honda connection becomes so important. The headline suggests that Honda's new engine is central to Aston Martin's opportunity, but the source does not reveal the technical changes behind it. That missing information creates the real tension. Because the question is not simply whether Honda has found more power. The deeper question is whether Aston Martin can turn that power into lap time. And those are not the same thing. A car can gain speed on the straights and still lose time in corners. It can accelerate harder and still struggle with balance. It can produce an impressive engine figure and still be limited by cooling, weight, energy management, or reliability. This is why the first reactions to a story like this can be misleading. Fans see 40 horsepower and imagine instant victories. Rivals would look for the conditions behind the number. Engineers would ask how often that power is available. Drivers would want to know how smoothly it arrives. And Aston Martin would need to understand whether the entire car has been designed to take advantage of it. That is the first major clue. The headline is about an engine, but the real story may be about integration. Aston Martin does not need one spectacular component. It needs a complete machine where every part supports the next. More power can create more speed. More speed can change braking demands. Different braking demands can affect tire temperatures. Tire temperatures can change grip. And suddenly, one engine development begins influencing almost every important decision on the car. That sounds complicated, but the principle is simple. Change one major ingredient, and the whole recipe changes. This is why the 40 horsepower claim cannot be judged only by asking whether the number is real. It must be judged by asking what that number unlocks. Could it allow Aston Martin to attack instead of defend? Could it reduce the time lost when accelerating out of slow corners? Could it give the driver a better chance of completing an overtake before the next braking zone? Could it force rival teams to rethink how seriously they view this project? Those possibilities are significant. But they are still possibilities. The source does not confirm them. And that uncertainty is exactly why the next part of this story matters more than the headline itself. Because before this claimed power increase can transform Aston Martin, Honda must solve a much harder problem. It must make that performance usable, repeatable, and reliable when the pressure is highest. And this is where the 40 horsepower claim becomes more complicated. Because power is never just one number. A Formula 1 engine does not deliver the same force in every corner, on every straight, or during every moment of a lap. The way that power arrives can matter almost as much as the total amount available. Imagine two cars leaving a traffic light. One delivers all its strength in one sudden burst. The other builds speed smoothly, without breaking traction or forcing the driver to correct the steering. The first car may sound more dramatic. The second car may reach the next corner faster. That is the hidden battle Honda could be facing. The available source does not explain where the claimed 40 horsepower increase comes from. It does not say whether the gain is produced by the combustion engine, the electrical system, improved energy recovery, or a combination of several changes. And without those details, nobody outside the project can know how much of that performance will translate into real lap time. But the number still creates pressure. A claim this large immediately changes expectations. Aston Martin is no longer judged only by whether the new partnership shows promise. Fans begin imagining podiums, rivals begin watching more closely, every test result becomes a clue, and every problem suddenly feels larger. That pressure can become dangerous. Because Formula 1 development rarely moves in a straight line. One improvement can expose another weakness. More power can create more heat. More heat can demand larger cooling openings. Larger cooling openings can disturb the airflow around the car. And disturbed airflow can reduce the grip that the driver needs through fast corners. So, the engine could become stronger, while the complete car becomes harder to manage. That is the contradiction at the center of this story. Honda may be giving Aston Martin more potential, but Aston Martin must make sure that potential does not create new limitations. Think of it like putting a much stronger engine inside a small boat. The extra force sounds useful until the boat becomes unstable and begins fighting the water instead of moving cleanly through it. The same basic idea applies here. The power unit, chassis, cooling system, suspension, and aerodynamics all have to behave like parts of one machine. If even one area falls behind, the promised advantage can disappear. And there is another detail people often overlook. Formula 1 races are not won by producing maximum power for one brief moment. They are won by delivering performance again and again. Lap after lap. Corner after corner. Under heat, pressure, dirty air, tire wear, and changing fuel levels. A spectacular peak figure may help during a qualifying lap, but a race asks a much harder question. Can the engine repeat that performance without overheating, losing efficiency, or placing too much stress on its components? The source does not answer that. It also does not reveal whether the claimed gain was measured under conditions that resemble a full race weekend. That missing context is crucial. A test bench can show what an engine is capable of in a controlled environment, but the track adds movement, vibration, changing temperatures, braking forces, and unpredictable airflow. It is the difference between lifting a heavy weight once in a quiet room and carrying it through a crowded airport for 2 hours. Both require strength. Only one proves endurance. And this brings us to the conflict hidden behind the exciting headline. Honda cannot focus only on making the engine more powerful. It must also make that power efficient enough for the new package, gentle enough to protect reliability, and predictable enough for the driver to trust. The driver's confidence matters more than it may seem. When power arrives smoothly, the driver can press the accelerator earlier. The car remains balanced, the rear tires are less likely to lose grip, and the exit from the corner becomes cleaner. But when the delivery is aggressive or inconsistent, the driver hesitates. That hesitation may last only a fraction of a second. Across many corners, it becomes real time. Across an entire race, it can become the difference between attacking and defending. This is why the 40 horsepower figure cannot be separated from drivability. The most powerful engine is not automatically the fastest engine. The fastest engine is the one that allows the driver to use its strength at the right moment. And Aston Martin's challenge does not end there. The team must build a car that understands Honda's power unit from the beginning, cooling paths, bodywork, weight distribution, electrical systems, and rear packaging all depend on how the engine is shaped and how it behaves. That level of cooperation can create a major opportunity. Instead of forcing an engine into a car designed around someone else's requirements, Aston Martin can develop the machine around the partnership. Every major decision can be connected. That sounds like an advantage, and it could be, but it also removes excuses. If the package fails to deliver, the team cannot simply blame a poor fit between separate systems. This project is supposed to be built as one complete idea. That raises the stakes dramatically. Because a successful Honda power unit would not just give Aston Martin more speed, it would validate the entire direction of the team. The investment, the facilities, the technical structure, the belief that Aston Martin can move from chasing the leading teams to becoming one of them. But if the 40 horsepower claim creates expectations that the final car cannot meet, the same headline could become a burden. Every difficult weekend would bring the same question: where did the promised performance go? And that question would not be aimed at Honda alone. It would reach the car designers, the engineers, the strategists, and leadership behind the entire project. There is also the reaction from rival teams. They will not judge Aston Martin by rumors. They will judge braking points, acceleration zones, straight line speed, energy deployment, and consistency across long runs. They will watch whether the car gains ground at the end of a straight. They will watch whether it can follow closely through corners. And most importantly, they will watch whether the performance remains present after several laps. Because rivals know something headlines often ignore, a real advantage does not need to announce itself. It appears repeatedly. It shows up when the driver attacks. It shows up when the tires begin to fade. It shows up when the car is trapped in traffic and still has enough strength to fight. That is when the claimed 40 horsepower would become meaningful. Not as a dramatic number. As a weapon the driver can use. But there is still one deeper issue. Even if Honda has genuinely found a major increase, Aston Martin must decide how aggressively to use it. Maximum performance can shorten component life. Conservative settings can protect reliability, but leave speed unused. The team may have to choose between taking the full risk and preserving the car across a long season. That decision could shape more than individual races. It could define whether Aston Martin begins as an immediate threat or spends months slowly unlocking the potential everyone expected from the start. And this is where the story begins moving beyond the engine itself. Because the real test will not be whether Honda can produce a powerful number behind closed doors. The real test will be whether Aston Martin can control that power when every rival is watching, every weakness is exposed, and one small compromise can affect the entire car.